We also have producer Daniel Buttrey with us. And producer Holly Kennedy also. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Wow, look at this crowd. Fantastic. Thank you all for being here tonight. It's been such a pleasure to just watch Vaxxed grow around the country. Audiences like this, it's so encouraging. Vaxxed is becoming, point that way, baby. You guys think it's good thing about microphones?
Feedback. You used to have to pay more for that, man.
Anyway, there's a movement happening, and it's not our doing. All we did was put people in front of a camera, let them tell their story, and we edited that together. That's called a movie. The pharmaceutical industry and the powers that be made a tragic mistake in trying to shut down and censor this film in Tribeca. Since then, documentaries in the world. We're having requests from almost every country in the world now to bring Vaxxed there. But it's important right here, right now in the United States. So the reason we're here really is the people that have been crying out, trying to tell us the truth for a long time. And I always want to recognize them. Everyone that has suffered a vaccine injury or has someone in your family that has suffered a vaccine injury, please stand up just for a moment. I just want you to know that I heard you, Andy heard you, Holly heard you, and this film is for you. It's for the rest of the country to know that this has to stop. There's too many of you. And it's a tidal wave that's coming for the rest of us. And so, not only have you been trying to warn all of us, but you've been called crazy when you say this is happening to your child. You're offered therapists by your doctors, and if you decide not to take that therapist and continue to ask questions about why this happened to your child, many of you get threats that sound a lot like they want to take your child away from you. This is happening in the United States of America, folks. This is supposed to be a free country, of free thought, free ideas, free expression, and the truth. And it is hanging in the balance. So, it's time to stand up. We need all of you. This isn't just a movie. None of us here want to be called heroes. You're the heroes. Everybody in America has to be a hero right now and stand up and be citizens that are heard from by the United States of America. It's time for we, the people, to take this country back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as it's awful for us parents, it's a real tragedy for our children. Our children could have been anything that they wanted to be. They've had their whole lives taken away from them as it should have been. They've lost their childhood, their teenage years, their future. So let's not forget that actually the real heroes in here, the real victims in here are our children. And what lies ahead for them is bleak, and it's our job to keep that going. So as much as this film also is about us stopping this happen to any other child, it's also, let's not forget, what has happened to our beautiful children.
Right, since there are probably not going to be any questions, we can all go. Any questions? Yes, this person here, and then down here, and then this lady over here. So you first.
Do you have a sense of where the political candidates for this election might stand?
I've just been warned on talking about politics. But since you raise it, it may come down to a choice of Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton. And at that point, you have to decide where it goes.
Bernie.
If you look, and I'm not going to take sides in this, if you look at the respective candidates at the beginning of this race and who had taken the most money from the pharmaceutical industry? Far and away. Way out there, bought and paid for already.
Yep.
Bernie, $1,000. It may be that he's not in with a shout. But this is a critical time in American history. If you do not make the right decision in the next election, if you do not force the politicians to take your side rather than the side of corporate interests, then you will lose freedom for a very, very long time. This may well mark the end of the First Republic of the United States of America. Because when a country starts to serve corporate interests over and above the people it is sworn to serve, that is the end of a republic. If there's someone, yes, go ahead.
Okay, so you're a man of science. So I'm asking,
Louder?
you're a man of science. So I'm asking specifically just from an entirely objective standpoint. I face the immediate reality that I'm going to have a son in a couple of months. And as you guys have stated, as it's been made very apparent to me by multiple people, contesting vaccines, trying to get answers out of the doctor before even going through with them is a very difficult process. The knee-jerk reaction from anybody who doesn't want to spend any time thinking about it is every kid needs their shots. I've gotten a very heated conversation with an in-law about this. Objectively, what is your advice for contesting someone who has a PhD? Because you can't just go out and say, I know more than you.
It's a tough question. I think we all have an answer on that. So I think we'll all give our opinion that I say in the movie that vaccinating children against serious infectious disease, not chickenpox, not rotavirus, against serious infectious disease with vaccines that are safe and effective is laudable. However, having gone down this rabbit hole, there is not one vaccine on the schedule that meets those criteria. To persuade me that that is not the case, that is that I am wrong, that these vaccines are safe, and they are so far, far from having done that. I am not in a position to advise people on immunization. I will not do that. There are, however, some doctors in the audience. I don't know whether you want to make yourselves known, but if you feel that we're able to offer advice to individuals here, please make yourselves known to them afterwards. Thank you very much.
As a parent to a parent, you've seen what happened with my story, my son. All these people that stood up here with vaccine-injured children will just say one thing: do not do it. It is not worth it.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask first. I think I need a second. Yep.
Hi, Dr. Wakefield. I just want to say I've been following your career for the past 12 years. I am the parent of a vaccine-injured autistic child. And thank you. You are actually going to be the one who's going to save the children. So thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about this latest development of your life story and Callous Disregard being made into a movie? Is there anything you can say about that?
Oh, Callous Disregard, yes, no. Callous Disregard is a book I wrote some years ago between the General Medical Council, the licensing body in England, making a finding against me and then exacting a price. And it was written and published in 2 months, and it is one of the most boring books in the world. My wife recommends that people read it if they're having insomnia. So however, I got a call. This is very brief because this is not about me. So let's get this out of the way. I got a call from creative artists. They said that someone wants to option your book, top Hollywood writer, and I said, yeah, right. You know, and this happened with David Kirby's book, Evidence of Harm. Participants took it, and I'm told that they buried it. They optioned it just to bury it, and they got film Contagion as a payback. That may or may not be true, but that is the story. I thought this was another one of those, and then it turned out that it wasn't. It's actually Terry Rossio, who wrote Aladdin, Shrek, Pirates of the Caribbean, and in the same genre, Callous Disregard. But anyway, that is what's happened. It's been optioned. Will it ever find its way onto the screen? That's another question. But
Yes, very supportive of the film, and a lot of editing decisions sort of came around. We got great notes, so they've been involved helping us make this film what it is. So very appreciative of Terry Rossios. All right, and there was a gentleman back here.
Gentleman back.
Oh, there you go.
Move. Go.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
You all. Single dad, 28-year-old.
Use the mic.
I have a 28-year-old son who's autistic. I'm a single dad. And then you all, first of all, I want to give a hope. Thank you all for doing what you did. My question would be direct.
Use the mic.
Now, we had heard back in 1989 when my son was born that a group of 13 women that were all friends together at Marine General, the 13 of them produced, 6 of them produced autistic kids. 1 of them produced twins. My question for you would be, have you specifically gone to certain hospitals, certain areas to see how autism in that area that in epidemic proportions are in one of them? I just wanted you to address something that you don't specifically said to a specific hospital. Thank you. Good luck.
I can answer that very briefly. The answer is no. And it may well be that in the early days, trials took place in those hospitals. I've heard this happening in England, where trials of a vaccine took place in children who, neonates, for example, and then they were abandoned. The results never appeared, and I can only imagine that that was not a successful trial. However, there are hot lots of vaccines, as happened with the DPT vaccine, where certain lots of the vaccine were particularly toxic. They were sent to specific areas, and there were clusters of encephalitis, encephalopathy in those areas. And the recommendation of the manufacturers to their distributors was that lots should be broken up so that you could never detect this clustering effect of hot lots again. That's how cynical it gets. Yes, this lady here, and then you.
Dr. Wakefield, hi. I have a 25-year-old daughter who was injured by DPT, as you just brought up, and I have a niece and nephew who are both on the autistic spectrum. I'm also a practitioner trying to help children heal after having been damaged. My question to you, when you did the original research, you found the inflammation of the GI tract. Have you since then learned more about recovery so that we can continue to work on, I'm looking at GI issues with all of these kids, and wanting to know what you know in terms more of recovery. Thank
Yes,
you.
recovery is a relative term, and
Yes.
different degrees for different children. As a gastroenterologist, I have a particular bias towards the gut. We found that if we healed the gut, then we could make massive inroads into the well-being of these children. Not only could they get out of pain, but there was some connection to their cognitive function as well. So getting rid of the inflammation, getting on a gluten casein-free diet in particular, getting rid of other allergens, enzymes, probiotics, nutritional supplementation, all these things had a dramatic effect on many, many children. The younger you get them, the better the result. But yes, absolutely, the gut is a very good place to start.
Thank you.
There was now someone down here, yes.
So I've been following all of this online. What's going on with the costs now? Because a lot of these things like CDC and
Louder.
Stand up.
So the question is about, there's a rumor floating right now that after sitting for a year and a half waiting to testify before Congress, that pressure may have come down from the CDC to get William Thompson to change his story on the MMR, and that he might even be being forced to sort of rake through or reanalyze the data that was supposedly thrown out by the CDC in order to exonerate the MMR vaccine. We don't have any proof of that taking place. It's a rumor. But it's the type of thing that you expect when you make a movie like this and you expose a government body, pharmaceutical industry, the way we just have. They have committed fraud and we've proved it. And I believe that any attempt right now to rejigger a study that they should have stood behind if they believed in it, to go back 12 years, take a study that's 12 years old now, and re-rate that data and try to come out with some other excuse for the fraud they committed, in my mind, means we have won.
That's right.
We've got them on the run. If you say that happened, and it's stupid enough to put that out in front of the public, then that will be the very chain that we wrap around their feet and send them to prison.
So that's Danius with the, yeah.
So I am a preschool teacher, and I work at a parent cooperative preschool where the parents are, come September, they're not, the ones who work in the classroom are also going to have to get their vaccines.
Yep.
And what they're saying is that they're going to need a measles and a whooping cough.
And the
So
flu.
what they really are saying is that they're going to have to get the MMR, right?
Yeah,
And,
pertussis and flu shot.
Correct. So the question she has, she works in preschool, preschool toddlers are all going to have to be vaccinated next year in order to go to school. I think even the teachers and the...
So that's what I'm saying.
Oh, the parents you're talking about is
The teachers and the volunteers.
The teachers and the volunteers are all going to have to get measles, measles you said, and whooping cough.
Right.
And her question is that means they have to get the MMR, correct?
The DPT.
And so really they're going to be getting 6 instead of the 2 that they're saying. They
Right,
have
so they talk about, just like we talked about, they talk about 2 diseases, but they give you coverage for 6 diseases.
7.
Or 7 all at once. And, you know, the whooping cough vaccine is a joke.
Yeah.
It's a total failure. They've all but admitted it. In fact, they're still making people take that thing.
My advice is to take your amazing qualifications and start tutoring the unvaccinated children who won't be allowed to go to school.
Yeah.
Yes, just here, and then this lady in front, and then you, okay?
Dr. Wakefield, so I've been following it in on the Vaxxed project.
Start again.
Thank you. I've been following along on this whole integrative medicine thing for many years now, so thank you for all that you're doing. But my question is, in the last few weeks, we've had the holistic medicine and all that, the Truth for Cancer by Ty Bollinger, and also now the Food Summit. And what I've heard from the various scientists and doctors is that there's a possibility that autism is possibly some sort of inflammation. And so if there's some detoxification that we can do or administer, it might alleviate or possibly change the condition. What are your thoughts on this? Thank you.
Yeah, inflammation and derangement of the immune system are key to autism, and one of the first things we observed based upon the parental story is inflammatory bowel disease in these children, so inflammation in the gut. And detoxification is the mainstay of therapy at the moment. So it's entirely consistent with what you're saying. And there's an abundance of information out there now to that effect.
I mean, part of the problem you have to understand is most of the medical system is denying the fact that we have any sort of gut issues or inflammation leading to this problem at all. They're still calling it a psychiatric neurological disease.
Right.
So imagine the amount of testing and study and money that should be going into not only stopping, making vaccines safe, but also taking care of these children. We're in the dark ages here. One of the things as a filmmaker, sitting with Andy Wakefield in the editing bay for a year, the conversations I got to have, he hates when I say this, but We don't know a lot about this disease because all the studies Andy Wakefield's in the middle of doing got shut down. That's why they stripped his license, not because the Lancet paper really had nothing to do with this, but because he wasn't going to stop. He was attempting to evolve these products, evolve the way we raise our children and make us healthier. And the pharmaceutical industry did not want to pay for that. It was easier to destroy someone's career. So a lot of these answers we all wish we had. We've been robbed of it because we took away one of the greatest scientific minds of our times. We let the pharmaceutical industry destroy that. And so now we've got to regroup. We have to stand together now.
Right.
You know, in watching that, so my brother's autistic after some seizures, but we didn't figure that out for a long time because he was, he's almost 50 now. But my son, who had the diagnosis of ADHD, I mean, I'm seeing similar behavior and frustration of communication, and that not as severe, but you can see it. And so you have to wonder, like, how far this reaches beyond our autism. Just all kinds of other, you know, smaller horrible things that we have to deal with that aren't as bad as autism, but you guys wonder what your thoughts are about that.
Medicine presents you with a sharp end first, the worst case. Feel quite like the child suddenly loses speech and communication, eye contact, starts falling over, then it's obvious to everybody that something's happened, except for some doctors have to. But that is the tip of the iceberg. And this is the point you made. And below that, there is a huge swathe of injuries that are not as serious, or not as obvious, or maybe more insidious in onset. So what happens if you just shave 9 points off the average IQ of every American? How long would that take to discover? So it took Needleman a very long time, 20 years, to convince people that lead poisoning did exactly that. Now we all accept it. He was beaten down by the petrochemical industry and upon everybody else. And he was right. And now it's just, yeah, okay, we know that lead does. So what you see at the population level now is that they're recentering the SAT scores to make the same number of children pass because they're failing and failing, and it's not across the board. It's not a systematic problem with the school system because girls aren't failing. Boys are failing.
That's right.
This is a biological effect, and exactly the same thing was seen with lead poisoning. There was a sex bias at different levels of lead exposure. So we are seeing a biological phenomenon which is dumbing down the nation, and boys are greatly impacted. The long-term consequence of that is clearly catastrophic. Over there, you behind, and then go to the theatre in front. Okay.
So, I know that at the movie that you guys had to write to your congressman, and my position on that is that a lot of our politicians are paid off by the big pharma. So, how can we, as a group, have, I mean, it's been since 2015 that, I forgot the congressman, the Florida congressman, went in front of Congress and nothing's been done. So I thank you for making this movie, but how can we have a bigger impact and not necessarily have to rely on our corrupt politicians?
Yeah, I'm standing, someone just handed me Dianne Feinstein's form letter. I got one of these too, and I wrote it to her. Basically saying, I really appreciate your point of view, but I'm not going to open up my mind and look at him. It's incredible because if you think about it, this politician, Dianne Feinstein, who I used to be a fan of, by the way, we have a whistleblower at the most important health agency in the world that's come forward. This is a brand new story. This isn't about Andy Wakefield, it's not about Polly Tommy. This is about one of our most important government scientists stepping forward and saying the MMR vaccine study is a fraud. How Dianne Feinstein can sit behind her desk and not address that for the American people is absolutely unbelievable to me. But you know, you're right. We have to fire these people if they're not going to take care of our children. One of the ways that we accomplish that, believe it or not, is through this film. This film is scaring the hell out of every politician in the country. And the way you can do something to help us is I need you to go home tonight. I need you to do two things. I need you to go on our newsletter and join our mailing list, because we are talking to very important congressional officials right now, congressmen, that are looking at calling William Thompson and getting to the bottom of this fraud. But we need to be able to direct masses of people to the right place at the right time. And the only way we can get to you is if you put your emails and give us a way to contact on our website, so please go home and do that. And then number two, bring another friend, bring two friends, and fill this theater the rest of this week. Because if you fill this theater, we keep getting requests from other people all over the country. We're expanding right now. We're in 20 cities. I think we've got 10 more coming, and we hope to be in every city in the country within the next month. You do that, we can't do that. That's very important. Right now, we have a cause, we have a mission, we have a movement. And the movement is around Vaxxed, this film. And I don't take responsibility for that. Andy doesn't. In many ways, I think we all sat in awe of this film when it was finished and said, whoever or whatever made that happen, it has transcended all of our abilities. This is a film that was supposed to be there for the people, and now it's here. Please bring your friends. Don't be afraid to talk about it on Facebook. Don't be afraid to talk about it on Facebook.
Before I ask my question, I wanted to make a statement. My sister is 36 years old, and she was severely damaged for the rest of her life by the DPT and possibly oral polio vaccine when she was 2 months old. And they told my mother. My mother asked, could it be the vaccine? My grandmother knew it was the vaccines. And they said, no, it couldn't possibly be that. And this was in 1980, before the Childhood Vaccine Injury Act was passed. So my mother could have gone to court. She could have sued the doctor. She started having seizures, and it got worse. And they've given my sister every vaccine they could possibly make. And she's gotten worse. And she got better, and then she got worse. And so growing up, taking my sister to handicapped schools and therapy, I only knew of one child who had autism until a few years ago. And I watched this epidemic grow and grow and grow. And I didn't have children yet, but I watched this from the sidelines. And my mother is an elementary school teacher, and she said the number of special education classes and the number of education schools is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And she's seeing more children with Down syndrome, more children with autism, more children who have all kinds of problems, ADHD, ADD, allergies, to everything. And it's making me really sick. And until I didn't ask my mom a lot of questions, my parents never talked about this growing up. I think they just didn't know who to ask. There was no internet, there was no support. And then I got pregnant in 2014, and I asked my mom, what happened? And so she sat down and told me, and I did as much research as I could possibly get my hands on. And recently, I've been trying to figure out where my ED came from, because I didn't have it as a kid. I was pretty smart. And I had the MMR vaccine because I decided to volunteer in a newborn nursery in Parkland Hospital in Dallas. And they forced you to get pretty much every vaccine you can think of, including the MMR. And of course, I hadn't had vaccines since I was a child. No one ever told me my sister was damaged until I asked. And they gave me the piece of paper, and I'm like, yeah, it's really rare. I don't really know anyone who's ever been hurt by this. So I got it. And then I pinpointed in the last month or so, that's where it came from, I think. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. No one can prove to us without a doubt. We just know ourselves. We know our children. And so I'm asking, do you ever plan to look at what happens when an adult gets the MMR? Because I've had a cascade of things that have happened to me, and I'm probably one of the healthiest people I know. I do holistic medicine, I eat organic food, I stay away from every toxin I can think of, and still I have these problems. And there's got to be adults out there. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, obviously there are adults out there who want to hear that story. I think that what's important about what you're talking about is the future of this country. This film at one point was 3 hours long. We decided to cut it down to stick to the facts around this MMR fraud. so we can at least knock one domino down completely. But for those of you that do not think this is going to affect you, your friends that don't think, hey, I don't have an autistic child, it's not a problem, you must realize that the future of the pharmaceutical industry is in vaccines. They're not going to make any more money off of drugs. It's too expensive to test them. They get sued too much. Vaccines are perfect. They don't have to test them. They get to rush them onto the market, and then they can't be sued when they destroy people's lives. We have a mandatory vaccine law for children here in California that's being worked on in the Congress all the way across the United States. They want to vaccinate every child. And then behind that, we're starting to work on the VA as a test group to have adult vaccines. And we're all eventually, within the next year or two, going to see laws that mandate every one of us to be vaccinated. We all, I mean, the truth is this is a room full of unvaccinated people. All of your vaccines have worn off. You're all perfectly healthy. You think you need more vaccines to survive? No, you do not. There's 270 vaccines in the pipeline. They're waiting to mandate every one of us so that we do not have a choice in the matter, and we're going to become human ATM machines for the pharmaceutical industry. We already have the sickest kids in the industrialized world, and you've heard all about it. Not just autism, ADD, ADHD, psoriasis, MS, autoimmune diseases, childhood leukemia, the list goes on and on. So you can sit on your hands, we can all sit here and just hope this fixes itself, but I guarantee you, if you don't do what Andy says, if you don't demand that your politicians deal with this specific issue, you know, this is the most important issue. I believe there is. Yes. Because we're about to lose our health.
Okay, so I understand that this movie is probably a stepping stone, because as you said, it started from 3 hours down to whatever it is. So my question is, given the amount of evidence we have of biological plausibility, MTHFR defects, low glutathione, Stephanie Seneff's, round up all that information, have you considered making a movie doing something that's mainstream, that easy to assimilate information for people so they can start to understand biological plausibility instead of, just relying on these fraudulent epidemiological studies that,
The short answer is no, we haven't thought about doing that at the moment. We really haven't thought about anything else. I'm there 24/7. With this film, and I don't think we'll be thinking about anything until we've toured the country, toured the world, and really rammed this down the throats of politicians worldwide. But those films need to be made, those stories need to be made. What is, before I go, in fact, the new filmmaker comes up to me and says, I'm making a film about this, would you advise, help, interview, whatever. So people have cottoned on to the idea, this is new, that film is a way of communicating these rather complex issues to the masses, and that is, we believe, right where you go. If you can't beat them, you become them. Okay? That's the way you can take them on. That's what we decided to do. And now, that gentleman there has been waiting for a very, very long time.
Thank you, Dr. Brayfield. I've been following you for a couple of years now, and thank you for siding with humanity. The people in government said eugenics. This is eugenics. They started with the African American, and now they moved into all of us. And this has to be exposed, and thank you for exposing it. My question is about the MTHFR mutation. My niece has that, and she was vaccinated when she was a kid, didn't develop really severe allergies until now that she's 7, 8 years old. What do you think should most kids, let's say in this state where we live, where we are being forced to vaccinate our children, should we test our kids for this mutation to see if this can help us make that decision?
I don't think the decision is going to be yours. That's the problem, is that you will not get a medical exemption on the basis that your child is heterozygous for an MTHFR mutation. If you don't know, this is a methylation gene responsible for detoxification. And really across the population, some people are good at it, some people aren't so good at it. And the question is, are those who are not so good at it more susceptible to vaccine injury.
Yes.
That seems to be panning out, but it's one gene, it's probably ultimately encoded in 50 genes that are responsible for various aspects of detoxification. So it's a very, very difficult question to answer. And no doctor at the moment is going to say the FDA recommends this test to say whether or not your child should be vaccinated. And that's going to be the stumbling block here. That science should have been done, and if this fraudulent study had not been done in 2001, or if you'd been given the true results then, we would have an answer to your question now. And that's the legacy of this book, okay? That's what's happened. We're paralyzed. Thompson said himself, we're paralyzed, we can't do any work, you set the research back 10 years. You would have so many of these answers now if it were not for this.
We have to, I just want to say one thing. Okay, one second. We keep talking to large groups like you, and questions like that are somewhat alarming because I don't think we're all realizing the state of crisis that we are now in. People, if we keep trying to move in the shadows, oh, can I be over here, or if I do this with the vaccine, or if they're closing in on us. It doesn't matter. You've got to homeschool, you have to homeschool. We've got to stand up and fight.
Yes, yes.
I keep wondering, what was happening with Jewish people, where they're saying, well, I mean, still, it's in the other town, it's not near me, and they said I can still go to the grocery store, I'm still allowed to do this, and they keep giving me rules, and there's a grandfather clause where I'm going to get the blah, blah, blah. Folks, the crisis is upon us. We are moments away from losing control of our bodies. We just lost control of our children's bodies. Stand up, stop trying to figure out how you can fit into the system. We've got to break this system.
Yeah! Woo! Yeah!
Tonight that I have an action item for you. I'm one of the physicians that the Vice Mayor of Berkeley, Linda Mayo, contacted before the council decided to voluntarily endorse SB 277. They thought they were doing the right thing. In the interim, the media has not played in our favor. Most doctors still favor mandating the vaccines. And so the council people, like many of the physicians, don't actually have the voice. You have the voice. You all need to write to your council people in Berkeley and let them know that you would like them to open the conversation again and come see this film this week.
Excuse me, have you thought about making a cartoon kind of film? Or like maybe autistic kids or autistic adults that may not understand this film? Or a cartoon kind of film for just kids that may not understand it?
Great idea. Good idea. Sorry, they're throwing.
I also wanted to tell you Linda Mayo will be here for the next show, and she allowed me to announce what's
Thanks everybody for coming. We do need to clear the theater for the next show. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Very nice to meet you. It's going to be a great day. It's Irish. Okay, Kitty, we'll get a photo of come on. That's good. These are a bit of a treat.